Serious ex-cult members, what was your "oh shit, I'm in a cult" moment? Googled my cult's name for the first time, which I thought was just the name of the church, and saw many articles about how the leader was charged for raping, sexually assaulting women. I showed my fellow cult members and they told me, the leader said that all those articles are lying and that we shouldn't believe them. I reflected some more and realized that weekday services at 4 a.m. and Sunday services that lasted 7 hours were absolutely not normal. Edit, damn, since this blew up I hope nobody I know finds my Reddit profile lol. I was in a cult that was run by a family member. It was a small group, and we were to give 100% loyalty to this family member, financial, and everything. It escalated to be my whole life for a good 5 years and I didn't know what normal relationships were. I met a guy and he showed me what love actually is. He told me that this relationship I had with this family member wasn't loving and I immediately knew. Told him everything and was out since then. It was so hard to say, I think I might be in a cult, but I did. Blacklisted family member and other members and haven't looked back. When I was threatened with their version of excommunication, which also involved disowning by my family for the great sin of wanting to go to university. Edit, since this is getting pretty popular, I thought I would include some links regarding some of the stranger things they believe and do. Speaking in tongues? V equals OVZWGW bro. This is not entirely UPCI, although the second clip is almost definitely UPCI. It is also common for them, especially ministers, to fake it to appear legitimate. If you spent a lot of time around it, you can tell the difference. Some in this compilation are the legitimate medical phenomenon and others are just gibberish. Tongues and interpretation? T equals 273. Again not UPCI but is very similar to my experience. The initial tongues portion is an example of real glossolalia, 100%. It was also very common to see someone just take off running. V equals BQE70L 1 gram 30, in the middle of songs and worship. When I got kicked out and I almost tried to kill myself. Couldn't see myself without the cult. I've talked about this before on Reddit, and was surprised because so many people also went to these schools but had no idea. The CEDU boarding schools were founded by a high-ranking Sananan member named Mel Wasserman. If you guys don't know what Sananan is, here you go. There's about a dozen of these schools and they are still open. Edit, here's the school's wiki. I went to Boulder Creek Academy, 2001 to 2003. They kept all the teachings, but dumbed them down for kids. Every few months we would go through a workshop, called Prophets, where they would do weird-ass fucking things like make one person sit on a mattress in the middle of the room and have the rest of us pretend like it was a life raft, and you have to scream out all of the reasons you have to live and beg for your life. Staff would walk around, going, you live, you die, pretty much all down to favoritism. If you get picked, you get on the life raft, if you don't, you drown, which was a little touchy for me because my older brother had just died from drowning less than 3 years earlier, but I had to act it out regardless, otherwise I would fail the prophet and I would be pushed back, and then I would be there another 3 months until the next one rolls around. Also sleep deprivation was a key part. The last workshop was 7 days, and the whole time you have to refer to yourself as me. I don't know how to explain this, but pretty much if you told a staff that you didn't want to do something they'd be like, that's right, I doesn't want to do this, but your me does. This was right before they dropped you off at a mall. Keep in mind, we were all kids who were in the middle of nowhere in Idaho, who have been away from the world for almost 3 years, and you had to 1. Buy someone food, 2. Get someone's address, 3. Talk to someone of the opposite sex, and some other shit, but you couldn't tell other people why you were doing it. When you graduate that Prophet Summit, the whole school, about 60 kids at once time, gathers round the main room in the house. They play this fucking song, and the kids walk one by one with a rose, and walk through the crowd and touch their hands and cry and Jesus Christ. What the fuck lol. Just clicking on that song to link it made my heart start beating and really took me back. I can go on and on and on. I was there for 2 years and this doesn't even scratch the surface of all of the weird shit. When did I find out? Like 10 years later when I really started thinking about it, it all felt totally normal, and I just remembered friends and stuff. That's the scary part. This was not normal, and to all the CEDU kids in here, sorry, you were in a cult. Just really take a minute to think about it. All of the weird sayings, the agreements, the smoosh piles, the bands, the raps, the jumpsuits, the repetitive music, the scrolls, the workshops, the monitored phone calls, the mandatory positivity letters, the outlets, the peace talks, the inner circles, all of it, and this was all Sananan. That's not even including the prophets, my dudes. I still have my prophet journal around here somewhere, let me update this in a bit. Edit, some other things. Disclosure circles. We had a thing called raps where we would sit in a circle for 3.5 hours 4 times a week and just share, or get yelled at, or have to rat other kids out. Disclosure circles were like raps on crack, and they lasted up to 6 hours. That's where the staff would have to share stuff about themselves too. I learned that one of the staff fucked an unconscious girl who drank too much, so that was nice. None of the staff there had any kind of certification or degree or was qualified to teach therapy to kid. I don't even think you had to have a high school diploma, and this was North Idaho, in the middle of the woods. At the end of the 5th prophet, staff and your friends would hold you down as you struggled to get up, and it would give you this weightless feeling, and they held you up to a light afterwards. That was your rebirth, as you shed your shadow self away. You looked back at your shadow and told it goodbye, and then it was someone else's turn. Edit, the shadow self is something that was connected to the first prophet. You had to draw an ugly image of yourself, and then face a wall and stare at it. Also during that prophet you had to put your head between your legs and scream out confessions at the floor. If you couldn't think of anything, you just had to scream at the top of your lungs. There were only about 14 kids to a peer group, so, imagine a room full of 14 to 17-year-olds just screaming, crying and yelling out the most horrible things that had happened to them while staff paced around them, making sure they did a good job. Again, I can go on and on. Another edit. They were able to keep you there until you were 22 if you were enrolled when you were underage. One of my best friends there was there for 4 years. If only you can see how just utterly lost he is right now. I'm afraid to even reach out because he's so far gone. The Mormon cult. I realized Mormons treat people who leave like absolute shit, and families are torn apart because a family member stops believing. Mormons' kids are pretty much forced to join the church at 8, and go on a mission at 18. If they're male, you also have to pay 10% of all income before taxes to the church in order to get in the temple. There's also sexual repression, teaching false history, and any information that doesn't come directly from the church is labeled anti-Mormon. When I showed up at my religious university as a freshman, and went to my first computer science class, and the professor made us read a section of scripture before the lesson and open with a prayer. I was also one of only 3 women in the class, and he would constantly joke about how we all needed to get married so we wouldn't have to program anymore. ETA, this was at BYU, the religious college run by the Mormon Church. And this moment stood out because I was on my first few days of college and I'd just moved from a liberal city to Utah, and all of a sudden I was hit with the fact that women weren't viewed as equals in this religion I'd grown up in. The professors would talk about how women were taking up seats that could go to men who needed to support their families, and how our educations would be a waste because we would all drop out and have kids anyway. Joke's on 'em, I finished my degree at a different university and I've been working as a software engineer at a big 3 tech company for a few months now. This will get buried, but whatevs. I grew up fundamentalist evangelical Christian. My dad saw the Duggars on TV and decided we were gonna be like them. Long skirts, modest clothes, courtships, all of it. My mom had gone through early menopause due to cancer treatment, but that was merely a small roadblock. I went to church every damn day. I was not allowed to question the doctrine. I was not allowed to study for the SATs because my mission in life, per God, was to get married and have babies. I was responsible for the impure thoughts my male counterparts had. It was my job to dress in such a manner that they weren't tempted. I got my 17-year-old ass beat with the belt because I wore jeans to school. I was told that women shouldn't have a voice in their reproductive care, because that's what God is for. So no sex until marriage, no birth control. Also, women who had sex before the holy bonds of wedlock were compared to used Scotch tape. I'm out now. I had sex before marriage. My dad refers to my daughter as a bastard. We don't speak. I'm tapping this out wearing a tank top and shorts. I hated my life in that cult. I love it now. Thanks for watching. What would be your response? Leave it in the comments and see what the others say. Please also like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, take care.